let everyone get settled in, and then we'll get to it. This is going to be the first public live stream we've done in a while, so if you're new, welcome. If you've been around for a while, hello again. And we'll get to it. I'm kind of deciding if I want to drink commemorative raw or Distant Mountains ripe. I had some good experiences with the 2021 Young Jade. So tasty. Finally starting to open up. Gonna sound strange, but really felt like sweet floral and cotton. That was the flavor profile. I assigned that tea last night when I was drinking it. Spring's coming, weather's getting better. Perfect time for raw pour. Really looking forward to drinking more and more of my raw pours. Kind of pulling them out of my collection and getting to them. Few fun things. So my wife has really been into trying to get good quality artificial flowers. It's a hard thing to do. Not a big fan of a lot of artificial flowers, but these are they even feel real. These are tulips. We have them in the house. Just awesome. So they were trying to find good artificial tulips. They got them. I put the link in the description below. Yeah, strange thing to ever think that I would like artificial flowers, but they do the job when it's super cold and hard to get beautiful flowers in the house. So we're going to be talking about a peculiar subject. I just finished filming 2 new YouTube videos that will be posted on the 1st of each month, so July and then August. One is focused on how to clean teaware. That has been suggested many, many times. So I have kind of gone into the details on how I take care of my teawares from ceramic, glass, porcelain, all the way to raw clay. And then the other video is talking about paying attention to the details, which I'm going to actually talk a little bit about today. I've talked a lot about how do you tell quality tea of the taste and the aroma and the appearance and all these taste profiles like I have on this video. But are there things we could pay attention to that could potentially lead to the quality of the tea we're drinking that aren't related to the tea at all? Other things on the tea table. Other habits of the tea preparer or tea shop or tea company that I think can be very, very telling. And that also kind of goes into individuals' values and perception of tea, and talk about there's different types of tea drinkers, and that's okay, but everyone's going to approach tea in a very, very drastically different manner, which is also okay. But if you're a little bit more of the obsessive type that is very gung-ho about the highest quality, how can we kind of go into that respectfully and also understand there is differences? So with all that being said, pop in your questions below. If you're drinking a tea, put them in the comments below. We're gonna kind of let these people start gathering in, and then I'm going to start preparing tea. And once the tea starts flowing, then I will go into my subject of tonight, because I always start talking and I never start drinking tea. So that's not gonna happen this time. I'm gonna make sure we get to that. I'm gonna go with the commemorative. I'm gonna go with commemorative raw today, because I just feel like I need a little bit of aged raw tea. And I drank a bunch of young raw tea yesterday, and I just need something a little more aged. 2022 Enchanting Beauty. Is it 2021? It might be 2021 Enchanting Beauty. I don't know if the 2022s have been out yet. Those teas have been out yet. And then we got Andrew drinking some Hugong Lishan. I guess it's roasted oolong. What kind of Lishan is that? Great. So you all preparing tea. I'm preparing tea. It's a good combo. Right? Good tea, good company. Can't get better for a Sunday night like this. Starting to feel like summer nights, which I'm really looking forward to, especially June. There's long daylight, really beautiful weather, some crisp, maybe a little rain, heats up a little bit. Open a window, drink some tea. Oh, there's nothing better. So now let's start talking about some philosophical concepts. I don't like to get too philosophical, but I just started reading a very unique book, which I can definitely recommend to all y'all. But it's very philosophical, so feel free to skip over some parts. But the beginning of the book is fantastic. And it's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And I know what you're thinking. What in the world does motorcycle maintenance have to do with anything with tea? And I was shocked the overlap. It just really made me just be shocked. My mouth almost dropped when I was reading the first chapter or so, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this directly applies to my crazy obsession with tea. So let's talk about that. Hogan is an area in the western part of Lisan region. Oh wow. Well, I'll look forward to trying that tea with you next time we encounter. So now I have successfully had a cup of tea in hand. Let's get to it. So the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is fascinating because it's talking about individuals that ride. In the beginning it is. He's kind of building the foundation for the story. And he's talking about how he's a motorcyclist enthusiast. He has some friends that are motorcycle enthusiasts. And they go on a road trip together. And he's saying that he knows everything about his motorcycle. And he can feel and hear the engine and take his glove and put some spit on his glove and then feel the engine. And if it sizzles, he knows maybe it's getting too hot or if it's about to overheat. Maybe he needs to slow down. Maybe he needs to pull off and rest his motorcycle. Certain sounds can pull off. Well, that sound doesn't sound quite right. Maybe something's wrong with the cylinder in there. Maybe the gas isn't going to the throttle. All these things. Like, he's very attentive because he spends such a personal relationship with the motorcycle. And motorcycles are quite difficult because if you are on a road trip somewhere in the middle of nowhere, something goes wrong with your motorcycle and you don't have a mechanic, what in the world are you going to do? So it's a concern there. And there's kind of a culture around motorcycles where some people are very adept at understanding their motorcycles, where cars, you can't go do that because maybe it's too difficult. Some people are very adept at that, but most people will go and get checked in. But motorcycles can be very hands-on. And there's a type of enthusiast that really just like the speed and the power and the performance of motorcycles, and they just kind of buy them for what they are, right? Hoping nothing's really going to go wrong and it'll be fine and dandy. And then when there's something wrong with the bike, I just drop it off at a mechanic. And the other school of thought is, well, I don't want to drop it off at the mechanic because how are they going to know this motorcycle more than I'm going to know it? And there's just a bunch of random people that are going to go in there and fix it. And what if they mess something up, right? And there's kind of these horror stories of mechanics messing up old vintage bikes or expensive bikes. And so he wants to take that into his own hands. And by this thought of him going in and taking that into his own hands and learning about the bike, he's more in tune with the bike. Where on the other side, they just want to enjoy the fast, beautiful motorcycle and they don't have to worry about it. And something goes wrong. Oh my goodness, what's wrong? Freaking out. And maybe not as in tune with what's going on with that bike. And the reason I thought that was so beautiful was because with tea, I think there's a lot of overlays. There are some people, which is fine, that just drink tea because it's fun. And every month I want a new flavor and I want a new experience in a new country and I just want to have a lot of flavors and something to talk about. And that's their experience with tea, which is great. And if something goes wrong or if the tea doesn't brew right that day, well, it must be the tea, let's move on. But with how I've kind of been trained and drink tea, I'm very particular about everything. I'm very aware of my water temperature. I'm very aware of my source of water. Right? If my tea is off, I don't say this tea is bad. Maybe my water temperature was wrong. Maybe I brewed it too long. Maybe my water was from the tap instead of spring water. Maybe I didn't clean my teaware. Maybe I'm not using a good quality teacup. Maybe it's too humid in here. Maybe it's too cold, right? All of these factors might affect that taste that I'm trying or that undesirable characteristic I'm getting. And when I became more in tune with that, maybe crazy in tune with that, I talked about the 3-day rule. If you really want to understand the quality of the tea, if you should be drinking it, if your body's comfortable, you should just drink that tea and only that tea for 3 days. It'll be a very enlightening experience. Obviously, you're not drinking like 5 times in one day. 2 times a day is fine. Morning, afternoon, next day, morning, afternoon, next day, morning, afternoon. The reason being is because maybe something you drank or ate strongly affected that first session of the tea. And so we want to know when we feel something like caffeine or irritation that it is indeed from that tea, not from something else. So isolating that tea with the 3-day rule, only drinking that tea, on the 3rd day, if you're still craving that tea, there might be a strong indication that's quite a good tea that might be good for a larger purchase to put in your collection. But you'll also start to get in tune with other things. Maybe on the 2nd day it was very humid. Maybe on the 2nd day you started to steep it too hot of a temperature. You brewed it a little too long. You felt a little uncomfortable. We just had a patron the other day, which I thought was fantastic when he brought this up, because I was also trying to be confused. I recommended him a raw tea that was quite calming, but he had an experience that was very irritating, very stimulating, couldn't sleep, almost like over-caffeination. And so, because I was so calmer with my habits, I just kind of brewed it perfectly. But I said, what if I change the way I brew it? What if I brew it longer? What if I brew it at a hotter temperature? And what I noticed was, oh my goodness, that tea now is very overly stimulating, over caffeine, overly bitter, uncomfortable in my body, and that's because I pushed the water temperature. And it's funny because when you get that close and aware of all those things, you become a little bit more particular. So if you're drinking tea with friends, someone maybe with a more casual approach to tea, they say, oh, this tea's so amazing, come down, let's sit down. They drink tea with you, they share a cup. The first 2 cups, everyone's kind of looking at you kind of weird. And then maybe your friend's like, oh, well, maybe it's not a good tea, maybe you don't like it, let's move on. Whereas someone that was a little bit more particular about tea would say, that's okay, let's start over, let's change the water temperature, and let's get a whole different flavor profile. Right? It's just 2 totally different schools of thought when approaching tea. That also gives you more control. It helps you make better decisions about purchases and what is actually happening. About that little pause, about what is actually happening to that tea and what you're tasting. And I just love that. And so if you kind of want to kind of go into the questioning of values and all these different types of thought processes, that book link is in the description below, but it's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And I thought it would be it's just such a unique overlap. Now, I do think in the middle of the book it's a little too philosophical, and maybe skip over that, but it's if you're really obsessed about tea, I think you'll enjoy that book. A lot of overlap. And with other teas, when you pay attention to the details, when you're that attentive to the details, many years, the first 5-8 years I drank tea, I wasn't. And I would be drinking very good quality teas next to not good quality teas and feel like there's no differentiation in the quality of price or value. Because I was just so far removed. And this is you need to be careful with when you drink teas, is if you're just trying to go for that aha sensation, I need something new, I need something different, it'll be very difficult to go to the next level and appreciate the subtle beauty of quality tea. Because if you're just looking for an aha sensation from a tea, you're always going to be craving something new, first of all. And then when you do encounter something that is very good quality, or many people believe is good quality, you might think it's quite dull, normal, or light. Because you're looking for a overpowering sensation that is radically different than something you had before, rather than pausing, drinking a few cups, seeing how the flavor develops. What are the subtleties? What is the sweet lingeringness that's coming in the back of the mouth, in the palate? But you start to look for those particular things, and you know there's so many variables. So, something to think about. Another thing about the small details is going to be kind of around, if you can't trust someone with the small things, how in the world are you going to trust someone with the major things? So, with that philosophy, go into a new tea shop, go into someone you might be buying tea from. If you don't have the best palate, how do you know what you're buying is quality? So I had a whole video that I'm releasing later about this, but some of the things you can do is ask technical questions not about the tea. Ask the shop owner or the company what water you use. Why is that important? Just gauge their response. If it's a non-slot, who cares? Let's focus on the tea. That's a little concern. Right? Tea is such a major factor. The majority of it is water. You're just taking water, infusing in leaves. So shouldn't the water be of somewhat of quality? Or shouldn't there have been some thought process around that item? The next is temperature. What temperature should I use around these teas, and does it matter in the season? I was mentioning this before, you can tell a lot about a shop owner or individual from their wash bowl. Is it clean? Is it translucent? Is it murky and nasty in there? Maybe that would have a reflection on the teas they have in their collection, the teas they are drinking. Do they have a lot of intention when brewing these teas? Do they take time with these teas, or are they haphazard and there's 7 different gaiwans and they don't really care and drink some of this tea, drink some of that tea, drink some of that tea? Maybe those teas that are so haphazardly made are not cherished, scarce, or expensive. Because if they were expensive or scarce, you obviously wouldn't haphazardly brew them nonchalantly to everyone that comes into the shop. That's another thing to think about is there's a very probably high chance that if you're a stranger, even if it's in a place of business, they're probably not going to be serving you their best tea because they have no relationship with you. And so sometimes you have to develop rapport, trust, relationship until you can even have access to those more high quality teas. Because if they truly are expensive to the owner or company, then they probably are more careful about how they serve them and who they serve them to because they cherish those items quite a lot. So another thing to think about deeply about serving tea and access to tea and where you're visiting for tea, and some questions you can think about that are sometimes non-tea related. Just kind of observe their tea shop. Is it relatively clean, right? Do they brew tea with great care? Are they very intentional with the tea purpose? Are they letting you drink the tea? Or are they eating a bunch of stuff? Maybe someone smoked a cigarette or something? That would all be reason for concern. More rule of thumbs, though. You always want to be careful with rule of thumbs, but nonetheless, I think something that's important to think about. Also, during the spring and summer, as the weather gets better, if you had some teas in your collection that you felt maybe are just asleep or they weren't as good as they were a few months ago and you were just kind of letting those teas rest for a while, especially during the winter months, just about now, around June, is a great time to revisit teas in your collection and change it up, right? The weather is going to drastically change the whole effect of the tea. Maybe those teas will have time to really open up again and start to bring out some floral characteristics. I noticed that with 2021 production teas. They were quite unique when they first were released, and there was just this huge muted period, this sleeping period. And just this month, and a week or two ago, I've noticed all of those teas start to show new personality, new characteristics, all of those items. So definitely take a look at your collection, bring some new teas out, revisit them in the spring and summer to see if it's ready to start drinking those teas on the more regular. Hey Matthew, how you doing? Thanks for joining us on this live. We were just chatting about one of the books I had just, I'm still reading, but the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I posted on Patreon. Just a fascinating concept about how different people approach things very, very differently. And it's funny, the more you're in tune and paying attention to all the small details, it just drastically changes not only the tea you're drinking, but your kind of worldview. Which is funny because it made me think about my journey a lot and how tea in many ways changed my life. Not because I drank tea, but of course I traveled to another country, learned another language, but also the attention to detail when I changed my tea drinking style to just like drinking tea and selling it and woo, it's so fun and it's such a cool little hobby and lifestyle, to what am I actually drinking? How is it affecting my body? And maybe that's an important thing to pay attention to. And when I started to make that shift in attention to detail and the quality of my tea, I also noticed that thought process, that thinking process, that system of questioning where the tea's from, how to identifying it, using rules. It also affected things in my own life, changes my values in life, changes my point of view in life, right? Once I understood something at a very, very deep, detailed level of high quality, then it was very easy for me to look out in the world and say, well, of course, it's not easy to get the highest quality of anything, right? Because that would be impossible. How can I just go to some store and get some thing that maybe I don't know anything about? It's very unlikely it's going to be of the highest quality, because I understand with tea, when I got so deep into it, it's very scarce. You have to cherish it. There's obviously types of conflicts of interest, with money and business, and those things to think about. And it just totally changed my value system and how I think. So pay attention. Pay attention to the details. Start asking questions. Something as simple as tea could have a profound effect on everything else in your life. So we're going to pause there. If you are watching now, drop some questions in the chat, because I want to get another infusion of tea. I'm drinking the Commemorative 2016. We have some Lishan that's being drunk, Enchanted Beauty. And then the 2022 teas should be released any moment now from all the vendors, really. Most of them should have been picked or being picked and being processed. So hopefully we'll see some 2022 spring teas here in the next month, maybe 2. Give it some time to be shipped over. Any larger productions will probably be delayed because of supply chain. So if suppliers will be sourcing tea, it'll be in China and then drop shipping it here in the US or doing air shipments. So I've noticed probably prices will be high this year, so something to be considered. Have I heard any news? So there will be no pre-orders, but there are new teas to be aware of. They're just not doing the pre-orders this year, probably for a number of reasons, but also cost. So when the teas finally do arrive in the US, which should be this month, late this month or early next month, they will be released for sale at the normal retail price. So there won't be any pre-order discount, unfortunately. We'll see if there's a price increase across the board for a lot of vendors, which we'll probably have. There's only going to be 4 teas from Danong, white, black, 1 raw, 1 ripe. So we're looking forward to those. Price, unsure. I'm going to assume on the costly side of things. Yeah, it's funny, like when I was working so much this last year, to be honest, I only drank tea maybe 3 to 4 times a week once, and I used like 2 grams, and what I would do is I would just make like fairly sized cup and then drink it before bed. But now that the weather's getting better, I'm like getting excited again to like drink tea, because the moment I really enjoy the most of drinking tea, this is a while ago, and maybe this is why it stuck with me. It was I would say at least 10 years ago or more. It was in a temple. We were sitting on the floor. It was in June. It was like 7, 8 p.m. The windows were open. Again, it was hot, but there was a nice breeze. There was an incense going. We were drinking some really tasty tea. We were all kind of relaxed. The lights were dim, and the sun was setting. And then you drink a cup of tea in that moment. Oh, that's comfortable. So whenever June and July come around, I just remember that feeling. And so I love just opening the window, feeling the rain or wind when the sun is setting late in the day. That's the best time to drink raw pour. Drinking Distant Mountains. Are you drinking raw or ripe? I was actually considering drinking Distant Mountains ripe today. So that's right. If you want, that's another trick. If you have a bunch of canisters, like I have 20-some canisters, take the wrapper of the tea, cut it around, fold it, and put it in the top of your canister, and then you always will know what tea it is. But yeah, I'm going to be revisiting both the Distant Mountains quite frequently. All the teas from 2021 I will be revisiting now. That's been kind of this 1 year period. Weather's getting nice in to really see how these teas are starting to open up and change. It's so funny because now Commemorative Raw is 6 years old. Look at that. That's HT right there. Man, I remember when this tea just came out. It was new. That's nuts. Does anyone else notice that? Have you all, any of you drink commemorative raw? Like the first 2 infusions, like the first one was pretty sweet. The second and third for me is a little underwhelming, and then it rests. Then you start drinking third, fourth infusion, you get this really nice sweet smoothness. It's almost like the second infusion kind of had like a little bump. It's funny. Once you have a pitcher, a really good quality pitcher, you never can go back. Because now I'm addicted to the aroma, how well this captures the aroma. I've had this pitcher now for over 10 years. So think about the durability of that. Knock on wood, right? But a good pitcher can go a long way, which is funny because most of the pitchers are 10, 12 bucks. Those things will break every 6 months. You probably all have that experience. You get a good one though, it really could last a lifetime. Tasty tea. Oh, and then Andrew, if you're watching, I drank some of that. I've been drinking that oolong, the lighter oolong, the green style oolong, at work. It's a very good, just everyday, consistent, tasty little oolong. It's funny though, I still have a difficult time with the caffeine on oolong, but if I drink it in the morning, I'm usually fine. So thanks for patrons to look forward to. We'll see how this year unravels, but I'm going to be doing, of course, when we get all the new teas that come out eventually, there'll be a live stream dedicated to each of the new teas, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. It'll also be interesting to see if there is any famous mountains. I feel like there has to be something that comes about, but we'll see. And then pretty steadily going forward, there will be a new video at the beginning of every month. Informational videos, kind of condensing more professional, straight focus on a particular topic, so we can build up quite an archive here on YouTube of just really good, useful information for those that want to enter into pour. And thank you all for watching and supporting. It means a lot. We're slowly, steadily growing our YouTube channel, which is fun to see, even though I'm not really in the tea business anymore. It's cool to see there's such a big community around pour. That kind of are craving this different type of information that's a little bit more technical, logical, rational. I'm not going to talk a lot of philosophical concepts. Well, today I literally did that, but usually don't talk a lot about philosophical concepts or kind of the beauty of tea, etc., but just understanding what in the world are we actually drinking, where it's coming from, and what are some tools and systems you can use to identify the quality of the tea you're drinking. I'm curious, to those that are watching now, have you all had any experiences with, tea colleagues, tea shops, tea peers that you felt were very, very different? Like I mentioned in the beginning of this live stream, kind of like maybe you have a very technical approach that's very focused, and others are a little bit more of a surface. And then when you drink tea with them, you kind of sometimes have a disconnect or a really good big connect. But what are some experiences you like or dislike drinking teas with some of your peers or tea shops or colleagues? Curious to hear some of your experiences. Because one of the things that I focus a lot on when I drink tea or share tea with others is I also want them to focus on the beauty of the tea. And sometimes people think I'm weird. So if someone comes over to drink tea, we have 1 or 2 cups, it's soft, it's floral, maybe they have a chance to smell the pitcher, and then I'm getting ready for the third infusion, and then we start talking in a pretty good conversation. But then I notice when I brew the third period, I'm trying to empty it, and there's only a very small moment in time that you can experience this beautiful aroma, and I almost abruptly stop the conversation to focus in on that aroma. And I want everyone to smell it, and I want everyone to pay attention to the lingerous and sweetness of the tea. And the reason I do that is maybe because I was taught that the process, I have to always be very attentive to brewing the tea correctly, making the tea correctly, making sure the people that are drinking tea are experiencing the aroma, the taste, and the lingering. So not only can they identify, they can learn and they can appreciate it. Because in a casual setting, it can be very easy to let the conversation take you away and your focus away from the tea. And so sometimes that just makes me seem a little weird because I'm stopping a conversation to focus in on the tea because it's so important. Why is it so important for me? And this is a good way to kind of judge or think about when you're buying tea or drinking tea with other people's, what is the effort they put into the tea? Because if I spent a lot of time identifying a good quality tea and maybe spent too much money on that tea, I have a strong inclination to make sure other people can have the opportunity to appreciate it, right? Because I cherish it. It's sacred. Or I should say scarce. So I want to make sure people are experiencing that way. If I was just going to have a very casual conversation with good friends, there would be no need to bring out a good quality tea, right? Because the need for attention is great. It's a great amount of attention that needs to be paid attention to when you're drinking the tea, smelling the tea, etc. I'm kind of maybe overemphasizing my point here, but I think it's a unique value proposition for each person. They have their own values, their own way to approach tea. So how do you approach tea? And how have you seen some of your peers approach tea? Curious to hear. And I think I've talked about this a little bit in the past around Famous Mountains. Like, it's a very rare occasion I will bring out Famous Mountain tea because it's just so costly now. It doesn't make sense most of the time to drink it. It is incredible, but the tea is so subtle and sweet and overpowering and amazing that if it's more of a casual conversation or drunken with people that maybe don't appreciate tea in the insanity that I appreciate it in, not in a mean way, but it's kind of a waste. To not have as much focus on that tea. So I've kind of developed a repertoire of teas that I use more casually, raw and ripe teas that are more daily drinkers and casual drinkers. And I've systemized them in my collection of these teas are good for these type of people, these teas are good for this type of people, these good teas are for those type of people. Curious if any of you have done all that as well. Yeah, this live stream, you're all getting to see how really crazy I am. So yeah, Andrew's saying, most tea drinkers I know drink 20 different teas per month. It's very different from my habit of drinking 1 or 2 different kinds of tea each month. It is strange how much it's, and that right there, I think you even did a good divide there. These 2 different types of thinking, or these 2 different types of personality. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just a very different personality, very different characteristic of an individual. One that is craving constant change, impactful flavor, surface differences like floral, sweet, strong, bitter. Okay, bum, bum, bum. Categorize those teas, move on. I want something new. And then there's another individual that says, well, I think I have something of good quality here. Let's really understand what is this tea made of? What is the substance of this tea? Let's dive in there, learn it, enjoy it. Let your body crave it. Yeah, amazing how Distant Mountains always relaxes me, which is funny because Distant Mountains, I think you're drinking the 2020 Distant Mountains, if I'm not wrong. Which is shocking about that tea is it's 2021. How in the world is it relaxing? And that has a direct correlation with the quality of the material that's being used. Oh, also, for those that are watching, I do have a few folks that are open to trading some teas. They purchase a large amount of teas, all very good quality. They were just trying to find what makes the most sense for them. So if you're open to trading some teas, just send me a message or Patreon. Just post. I can post some of those teas you want to trade on the Patreon community, and then link you all up if you want to trade some poor teas. I also think it's a different type of. You can learn a lot about someone by how they brew tea. My last video when I talked about I don't use a filter, there's a big difference in the people that use a filter and the people that don't use a filter. Very different types of tea personalities. It's funny, you never know with these YouTube lives what will happen. Sometimes there's a bunch of people that join, sometimes there's not a lot of people that join. Maybe it's because I don't have a consistency in schedule for live streams. Maybe I should change that. Very attentive. Why do I rub my palm on the bottom of the tea pitcher? There's actually a reason for that. So I will show you when I finish this. I empty this pitcher out. There's two reasons. One, you want to get the aroma out of the pitcher. But there's a very small time window to be able to appreciate that aroma. And that's mostly to do with the temperature. So one way you can cool down the pitcher after you empty out the liquid is to fan the pitcher, to circulate the air, which is good because it'll help circulate the air, to help the air and the aroma come out from the tip. But it's very easy if you do too much of that, it cools down too quickly. So I place the palm on the bottom of the pitcher to cool down the pitcher slightly to the temperature of my palm, like getting closer to body temperature so I can get that aroma to come out slowly. So it's just another method for cooling down the pitcher. Obviously, if it's too hot to touch, then you know maybe the aroma's not quite ready to come out. If it's just hot enough where you can probably leave your palm there without being hurt, that's probably the perfect time for that aroma to come out, and then it is a good indication for you to then smell the pitcher to appreciate the aroma. So it's just another way to cool down the pitcher and let the aroma come out. That's a little bit slower than fanning the pitcher. So here, right, so it's still too hot. The aroma's not really coming out yet. Circulate the air, touch the palm, right, it's just about the right temperature. Okay, and then the aroma comes up. And then I think when I go back to touch it, it's kind of meaningless, but it's just so many years of doing this. Now it's like a comfortable feeling. Feel the warmth of the pitcher on my palm. That's concerning. You said there is a new trend where people put their tea in a grinder and then steep it using a Haro filter like pour over coffee. There seems to be a lot of new trends. Well, this is a fun fact. So when I worked way back with matcha, This is going to sound horrible, but for high mountain oolongs, we had a client who wanted to drink oolong latte. And when you use a tea espresso machine, so not a coffee machine, tea espresso machine is actually, the tea flavor comes out stronger with fannings if you're making for a tea latte. So you need that strong tea flavor, right? So you put fannings, oolong fannings, etc., white tea fannings, green tea fannings into a tea presso, tamp it down, and then put it through the machine. And that's how you make a lot of tea lattes. And obviously you want good quality tea fannings, but who in the world is going to take really good quality tea and then grind it into fannings? Like, that's crazy. But you need decent quality to get good tea. Then I had a client who would bring in his high mountain little bags from Taiwan, quite spendy tea, and tell me to grind them and put them in the tea presser machine. So, and he liked the flavor, and it was quite tasty. So maybe with certain teas, it's a unique way to get a certain type of strong flavor that I feel like that would almost be more ideal with like tea lattes or something. But it seemed to work well for oolong teas. Pour was tough. Raw would never work that way, ever. But ripe might. And the reason raw wouldn't is because it's just, you would destroy the structure and integrity of the leaves. Because when you agitate the leaves of raw pour too much, or mush them too much, or too much aggressive water, or you brew them too close together without letting them rest, you get a bitter sensation. So that would be the one tea that would be difficult to do any experiments like that. But ripe, we had a ripe tea latte, and we had really kind of coarse fannings, and it was quite successful. So that's funny. I guess there's something to do always. Also, swinging a $140 glass pitcher next to a cement slab makes me nervous. Yes, so then use the palm technique. Don't use the swinging technique. Use the palm technique. I have broken one of these. Are they still on the 140? I feel like that's so cheap now. I thought the price went up. Because I do remember at one point in time, these were like 60, 70. They went up to 140, and now I think they're over $200 for these pitchers, which is just crazy. Not easy to recommend. So yeah, use the palm technique. It's more calm. I think even when I was in the tea shop, my tea master always told me, do not do this, it's so unprofessional. Just do it very slowly once or twice to get the air circulation, then use the palm. So, yeah. An issue I've had with a tea shop in recent past is when I was offered a tasting of teas I'm interested in, I was told what I'm experiencing, not asked what I'm experiencing. Well, I'm a little guilty. I'm a little guilty of that. I would say, yeah, I mean, that's sometimes what happens. Because if you're thinking about if a company will have an agenda, there's two spectrums of it. One, very few. Maybe they want to teach. That's more rare. And then the other is they're hoping to plant a certain type of experience or taste profile in your mind so you can purchase the tea or drink the tea. But yeah. That's a great observation. See if they are asking you what you're experiencing rather than telling you what you're experiencing. That would be a big differentiator of how people experience tea. Because I also will, we don't tell them so much, but I tell them what to experience. Experience this aroma. Experience this cup. Do you feel anything in your palate? Yeah, that does happen a lot. It's funny because most of our interaction, if we go in the world to drink tea or we experience tea for the first time at a tea shop or overseas, most of us are experiencing, whether we really realize it or not, we're experiencing tea in a sales setting. Think about that. There's these tea houses here, even in Seattle and California. You go in there and sit down at a tasting bar. It is a sales setting, right? They are a business selling tea. So there's also that we want to be mindful of, right? Is this experience as authentic as we may want it to be, subjective as we want it to be? Then, once you get into tea, you create your own communities and friends, and maybe you build a rapport, a relationship with the shop owner, and then, of course, things change. But something to be mindful of, nonetheless. Yeah. It's just crazy. There's also a little cup. Like, I remember, I can't believe, I feel like it's not even long ago. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. We had like those little white porcelain cups. They were like $8. Now they're like $42. The Guy Wands were like $40. Now they're north of 100. These little glass pitchers are over. That's just so nuts. And now we have inflation coming at us like a freight train. Inflation's hitting us so hard we can't even see the license plate on the bus that hit us. So I think all kinds of crazy prices in the future will be coming at us, coupled with supply chain. How fun. Alrighty, y'all. I'm going to do one more infusion here, and I think we'll wrap things up. This commemorative raw is durable, long-lasting. That's right. Another thing I like about really good quality raw teas. We know they can do a lot of infusions. When they're really young, you kind of notice that they kind of are sweet and abundant, and they kind of just slowly tail off, and they're just kind of sweet, right? But as good quality raws age, you notice that it's just weird. It's just very durable. It just has a very strong abundance. They're very durable, long-lasting. You can let the tea rest for a few minutes, 20 minutes, come back. Maybe rest an hour and come back. You almost drink these teas, 2 or 3 days with continuous steeping. That's the beauty of good pour. Remember that. You want your good pour to develop and become amazing. You do not want your tea to be uncomfortable and bitter, and you're like, oh, I hope this tea just mellows out. Right? That is a trajectory we do not want. Right? We want teas to go like this. So just remember that. If you're hoping the tea you bought is going to mellow out, it's probably not going to have a good future. If every time you visit that tea, it's developing and changing and becoming sweeter and smoother and durable, that is something to look forward to as a desirable characteristic of a pour tea. So just remember to keep that in mind as well. Alrighty, y'all. Cheers to the spring. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Enjoy tasty teas. All the new teas should be coming out this month, next month, so keep your eyes peeled. Lots of stuff we can be tasting. If you want to support the channel, see more live streams, of course, post some comments below. Feel free to join my Patreon to help support this YouTube channel. We also do a lot of private live streams over there and answer all your questions personally. Also have a huge archive of live streams that go way too into detail, probably for anyone's sake. Probably don't need to go that much into detail around pour, but we do. Oh, just better and better. All right, y'all. Thanks so much. Thanks for your support. Have a wonderful start to your week tomorrow. And look forward to seeing you in some of my next videos. Take care.